Before the show will begin, there are a few safety regulations and procedures that should be aware of. The following show contains excessive amounts of bright flashing lights and or striking colors, which may cause discomfort procedures for those suffering from photosensitive epilepsy. Audience discretion is advised. For your personal safety and due to new COVID-19 restrictions, you are required to wear a medical face mask for the duration of the entire show. We also request that you conform to social distancing requirements. Please keep a minimum of 1.5 meters distance between yourself and other audience members at all times. In the unlikely event of fire, now there are 7 exits: 2 at the bottom left, 3 at the bottom right, and 2 at the bottom of the theater, 1 on either side. Please make your way to these exits in a calm and orderly fashion. We'd also like to kindly remind you that flash photography along with videos of the performance are not permitted. A high quality video will be available online later. On behalf of the ISD Sound team, we'd like to thank you for listening and hope you enjoy the show.
flows in both our veins, doesn't it, my sister? The blood of Oedipus. And suffering, which was his destiny, is our punishment too. The sentence passed on all his children. Physical pain, contempt, insults, every kind of dishonor. We've seen them all and endured them all, the two of us. But there's more to come. Now, today. Have you heard it? Have you heard this new proclamation which the king has made to the whole city? Have you heard how those nearest to us are to be treated with the contempt we reserve for traitors, people we love?
No one has told me anything, Antigone. I have heard nothing, neither good nor bad, about anyone we love. Not since the battle, I mean. The terrible news that both our brothers were dead. One day, one battle, and fratricide twice over, each brother cutting down his own flesh. But the army from Argos retreated last night. I've heard that. Nothing else to cheer me up or depress me further.
I thought you hadn't. That's why I asked you to meet me here, where I can tell you everything without any risk of being overheard.
What is it then? More terrible news? Something black and frightening? I can see that.
Well, what do you think his meaning? Perhaps you can guess. We have two brothers, both of them dead, and Creon has decreed that a decent burial shall be given to one, but not to the other. Eteocles apparently has already been buried, with full military honors and all the formalities due to the dead, meticulously observed so that his rest in the underworld among the heroes is assured. But Polynices, who died in agony, just as certainly as his brother did, is not to be buried at all. The decree makes that quite plain. He is to be left lying where he fell, with no tears and no ceremonies of mourning, to stink in the open, till the kites and vultures catch the scent and tear him to pieces and pick him to the bone. Left unburied, there's no rest for him in the underworld, no more than here. What a great king our Creon is, eh, sister? It's against us, you realize, and against me in particular that he has published this decree. And soon he'll be here himself to make it public to the senators and anyone who may not have heard it. He isn't bluffing. He means to act to make it stick. The punishment for anyone who disobeys the order is public stoning to death. So that's the news. And you know it now. And the time has come for you too to stand up and be counted with me, and to show whether if you are worthy of the honor of being Oedipus' daughter.
Wait a minute, Antigone. Don't be so headstrong. If all this is as you say it is, what can I do, one way or the other?
Say you will help me. Commit yourself.
To do what? Something dangerous?
Just to give me a hand to lift the body. It's too heavy for me to move on my own.
To bury him, you mean, in spite of the decree.
He is my brother. And like it or not, he's yours too. I won't betray him now that he's dead. No one will ever throw that in my face.
But Creon has publicly forbidden it.
He can't forbid me to love my brother. He has neither the right nor the power to do that.
Have you forgotten what happened to our father? Contempt and loathing from everyone, even from himself. That was his reward. And blinded too by his own hand. And his mother, wife, is ill matched with him as those two words are with each other. She knotted a rope and hanged herself. And now our two brothers, both in one day, caught in the same trap, claiming blood for blood and death for death, each one at the expense of the other. We are the last ones left, sister. And what a death is promised to us, more terrible than any, if we break the law by defying the king and the power of the state. Think for a moment, Antigone, please. We are women, that's all. Physically weaker and barred from any political influence. They are in power and we must obey them. This time, and maybe in worse situations than this. May God forgive me and the spirits of the dead, I have no choice. State power commands and I must do as I am told. When we are powerless, wild gestures and heroic refusals are reserved for madmen.
Don't say any more. I won't ask again. In fact, if you were to offer help now, I would refuse it. Do as you please. I intend to bury my brother, and if I die in the attempt, I shall die in the knowledge that I have acted justly. What greater satisfaction than that, for a loving sister to embrace a loving brother, even in the grave, and to be condemned for the criminal act of seeing him at peace? Our lives are short. We have too little time to waste it on men and the laws they make. The approval of the dead is everlasting, and I shall bask in it as I lie among them. Do as you please. Live by all means. The laws you will break are not of man's making.
I reverence that. But how can I defy the unlimited power of the state? What weapons of mine are strong enough for that?
Fine. That's a good excuse. I'll go shovel the earth on my brother's body.
Frightened, Antigone. I'm frightened for you.
Don't be frightened for me. Fear for yourself.
For God's sakes, keep it quiet. I won't tell anyone of our meeting here.
Don't you dare! You must tell everybody, shout it in the streets. If you keep it secret, I shall begin to hate you.
There's a fire burning in you, Antigone. But it makes me go cold just to hear you.
I'm not doing it to please you. It's for him.
This obsession will destroy you. You're certain to fail.
I shall fail when I have failed, not before.
But it's hopeless. Why begin when you know you cannot possibly succeed?
Quiet. Before I begin to despise you for talking so feebly. He will despise you too, and justly. You can go now. Go. If I'm mad, you can leave me here with my madness, which will doubtless destroy me soon enough. Death is the worst thing that can happen, and some deaths are more honorable than others.
If you've made your mind up. Antigone, it's madness. Remember I love you, whatever happens.
This morning.
Never a more glorious dawning than this sunrise over Dursey's river, when the army of the foreign invader at first light made its panic-stricken flight, and all its bright shields and white swords were gone.
Like a snowy eagle from the mountain crest it came, shrieking down upon our city, the army of Argos with a spurious treaty to enforce Polynices' claim. All its horsehair plumes were knotting together, and a grinding of brass and a creaking of leather. There are 7 shattered gates that waited, eyes glittering in dark helmets, swords drawn, spears couching.
For the killing and burling, the metallic taste of blood, and crushing stonework and blazing wood, in their ears, at the backs, the drag's breath.
Zeus had seen them. He who hates inflated pride and the empty boast of the windbag. He heard their singing.
After the victory was theirs for the taking, and he brought in his thunder on their glittering host, struck them with lightning and sent them flying, scorched them and burned them, and left them dying.
Down like a rock from the mountain crest, he came thundering to earth, the flame dashed from his hand, the son of Thebes, whose best hope of fame was to conquer his native land, and who failed in his quest.
For the war god gave us his word of command. Like a battle chariot, his terrible name ran them down where they stood, and they died in the dust.
Now, at each of our 7 gates, Theban defender waits. 7 champions bring their fame and armor to the fight, and before the coming of night,
6 have put their fame to the test, and 6 have laid both fame and armor to rest, as a tribute at great Zeus's feet.
At the 7th gate, 2 brothers meet, sharing their blood in death as in birth, each striking together, each laying the other dead on the earth.
There will be a victory celebration today, in the city of Characters, and singing in the streets.
There will be ceremonies of thanksgiving and grateful tears for the end of fighting. As the enemy retreats, the time comes for relaxation and play.
Now as all voices are raised and the drum beats, the ecstatic god himself will appear, Bacchus, the drunkard, to take power for one day in a city he calls his own.
Time to dance all night, to shake the foundations, until the faint light of dawn flushes the windows and the lamps fade.
Now, Creon is king.
He has made most of his fortune, and the god's choice the son of Menocius.
As the people rejoice, the new king enters to take his throne.
The responsibility his, alone.
But why has he called us here to debate an emergency session?
Is public proclamation so vital to the state?
Senators, our country, like a ship at sea, has survived the hurricane, and the gods who sent it have navigated us into calmer waters now. I have chosen to summon this assembly because I know I can trust you. Your predecessors were loyal and reliable in King Leia's time, and when King Oedipus, in his exceptional wisdom, restored the fortunes of the city. When tragedy struck him, and his rule was ended, your loyalty to the blood royal was never questioned, and you supported his sons, until they too were brought down in a single day, incestuously murdered, one brother shedding another brother's blood. By that same blood right, as next of kin, I claim the throne, and all its power, both city and kingdom. I claim it and hold it from today. There is no certain measure of a man's quality, the depth of his intellect, or the maturity of his judgment, until he too is put to the supreme test by the exercise of lawful power in the state. My own opinion is well known. The ruler who fears the consequences of his actions, or who is afraid to act openly, or take good advice from his senators, is beneath contempt. Equally contemptible is the man who puts his friend's interest or his relations before his country. Nothing good can be said of him. Let me make it plain before the gods, whose eyes are in every council chamber. If I see any threat to this nation, from whatever direction, I shall make it public. No one who is an enemy of the state shall ever be any friend of mine. The state, the fatherland, is everything to us, the ship we all sail in. If she sinks, we all drown, and friendship drowns with us. That is my policy, a policy of service to commonwealth. And in pursuance of that policy, I have issued an official state decree concerning the sons of Oedipus. Eteculus, who died, fighting for his country, and with exceptional bravery, we shall bury him, and with all honors and funeral ceremonies customary for a man who died a hero. The other, the outcast, the exile, his brother Polynices, who returned at the head of a foreign army to destroy his homeland, burn down the city, and reduce the people to a condition of slavery, or kill them in the streets. I've ordered that he is to have no grave at all. No one is to mourn for him or bury him. I intend to make it quite plain that never under my administration shall people who commit crimes against the state reap any benefit for their actions. But people who serve the state, dead or alive, I shall honor them for their patriotism.
Son of Menocius, you are king now, and you have delivered your verdict and your sentence upon the man who defended the city and upon the man who attacked it unambiguously. The full power of the law is in your hands, and it binds the dead as well as the living. We are all at your disposal.
Make sure, then, that my orders are carried out.
Younger people than us should implement your policies.
I don't mean that. Polynices' body is already under guard.
What else must we do? What other responsibilities do you lay upon us?
Not to intrigue with dissidents or subversive elements.
We are not mad, sir. We know the law and the penalty for breaking it.
Which will be death, and be in no doubt that I shall enforce it, because there are always men who are willing to risk anything, even death, if the bribe is large enough. Senators, I promise that
My Lord Creon. Sir, if I can hardly speak, for lack of breath. It's not because I ran. I kept on stopping, as a matter of fact, half a dozen times, and I hung about as much as I dared. I haven't thought about anything so much for a long time. Listen, don't hurry, I said to myself. Chances are, poor sod, you'll cop it when you get there. But then I said to myself, you see, hang about. Or rather, don't, because then if Creon hears this from somebody else, then you're really in trouble. So I hurried here as slowly as I could, going round and round in circles in my head, as well as with my feet. It's funny how long a mile can take you when you were thinking what I was thinking. But duty called in the end, and I figured it'd be better just to face it out. If I'm punished for it, gods will be behind it, that's for sure. So I wouldn't have escaped it anyway.
Talk sense, man. Why are you frightened?
Well, first of all, sir, for myself, like, my own point of view, I never done it, and I didn't see who else done it neither. So I shouldn't be punished for it, should I?
Is there any need for all this preamble? You take great care to dissociate yourself. From what I hear, it must be bad news.
It is, sir. And I'm so scared, I don't know how to put it to the best.
The plainest way, and then we can have done with you.
Straight out with it then. The body's buried. Somewhere or other. Dry dust, that's all. A handful of dry dust, but properly sprinkled, you know, religiously. And then gone, whoever it was.
Do you know what you are saying? Who has dared to disobey my orders?
There's no way of knowing, sir. We have no idea. There's been no digging, no spade marks, well, nothing. Ground's rock hard. No wheel tracks either from a chariot, a cart, or anything. In fact, no clues of any kind at all. Nothing to tell you who might have done it. When the sentry, taking the early turn, discovered what had happened and reported back, whew, we were all shattered and scared stiff. It was as though the body had disappeared. Not buried in a proper grave, I don't mean, but lightly covered with a layer of earth. Almost as though some passing stranger with a religious turn of mind, knowing that being left unburied means everlasting anguish and wandering without rest, had sprinkled a few handfuls. There'd been no animal tracks either, from dogs or anything that could have gnawed at it or covered it over with their front legs like they do a bone. We ruled that one out pretty quickly. A real row started then, I can tell you. We shouted at each other, and it could have been a fight. There was no one there to stop us. We all suspected each other, but we all denied it, and there was no evidence to prove one man guilty over another. So we all dared each other to go through fire and water and hold red-hot pokers in our hands and call all the gods as witnesses that we hadn't done it, didn't know anyone who had, or would even think about doing it, let alone do it. And none of any of it got us nowhere. And then, this fella had to say, and he scared us all shitless, I can tell you. He said, and we knew he was dead right, he said, one of us lot must tell the king, because we can't just hide it, can we? That's what he said. And we all knew he was right. So we decided to draw lots, and just my luck, I drew the short straw. And I don't like telling it one little bit more than you like hearing it. The bloke who brings bad news never gets a medal.
My Lord Creon, this policy of yours has worried me from the start. My political instinct tells me that it's some sort of sign, or warning, and perhaps from the gods.
How dare you! Shut your mouths, all of you, before I lose my temper! And you, if you are a fool, at least don't speak like one. Ask yourself this one question. Do gods love criminals these days? Oh no. No, they do not. But there are men in this city, and I've noted them. Enemies of the state, a subversive faction, a cell of oppositionists, call them what you will, who reject the law and my authority. They meet in secret and nod and talk their seditious talk, and they are behind us. Anyone can see. Their bribery has suborned my soldiers and paid for this demonstration against my authority. Money, ladies and gentlemen, money, the disease which infects mankind with every disease we have a name for. You, soldier, come here, get this into your head. You will either find the man who buried Polynices' body and bring him here, or you, soldier, will die for it. And death, I promise you, will be the least of your concerns. If you fail to do so, you will have to confess the full conspiracy behind this crime. Who paid you? How much? And for what reason? Perhaps that indicates where your own best interests lie.
Am I allowed to speak, sir?
No! Why should you speak? Every word you say is painful to me.
Well, it can't be earache, sir. Not what I gave you. It must stick in your gullet, or further down. Maybe a sort of pain of the conscience?
Do you dare answer me back? I make jokes about my conscience?
Me, sir? No, sir. I might give you earache. I can see that. I talk too much. Always have done. But the other pain, the heartburn, as it were, it's a criminal causing that, not me, sir.
You're not short of a quick answer either.
Maybe not, but I didn't bury the body. Not guilty to that, sir.
Maybe guilty for selling your eyes for money. Looking the other way for cash, eh, Sentry?
I think it's a shame, sir, that an intelligent and well-educated man as you should miss the point so completely.
I'm not interested in your opinions. If you fail to find the man who buried Ptolemy's body and bring him here, I promise you, soldier, you will die for it.
Let's hope they find him, whoever he is. One thing's for sure, they won't find me. I never thought I'd get out there alive. And when I do, nothing will bring me back again. I've had an amazing stroke of luck, and I'm not going to chance my arm a second time.
I mean, is there anything more wonderful on Earth than our marvelous planet, than the miracle of man? I mean, with what arrogant ease he rides the dangerous seas, from waves towering summit to the yawning trough beneath. The Earth's mother ran on time. The oldest of the ageless gods learned to endure the driving plow, till the sweat came their brow, and she yielded up her fruitfulness.
The quick-witted birds are no match for him. Neither victim nor predator among the beasts of the plain, nor the sea's seething masses. His cunning surpasses their instinct. His skill is the greater. His snares never fail and his nets teem. The wild bull of the savage mountain and the magnificent stag who passes like a king through upland and glen. The untamed horse with his matted tresses uncut on his neck, all submit to man, and the yoke and the bit, and his power increases.
He has mastered the mysteries of language and thought, which move faster than the wind. He has tamed and made rational political wisdom too, all the knowledge of people and states, all the practical arts of government he has studied and refined, built cities to shelter his head against rain and danger and cold, and ordered all things in his mind. There is no problem he cannot resolve by the exercise of his brain or his breath, and the only disease he cannot salve or cure is death.
In action, he's subtle beyond imagination, limitless in his skill. These gifts are both enemies and friends, as he applies them with equal determination to good or to evil ends.
For all men honor, and the state uplifts that man to the heights of glory, whose powers uphold the gods, the Constitution, and their laws. His city prospers, but if he shifts his ground, takes the wrong path, despising morality and blown up with pride, indulges himself in his powers. Of my heart may he never warm himself, or sit at my side.
Wait, I can't believe my eyes. Can this be true? This is Antigone. I recognize her as clearly as I can see you. Her father's destiny was suffering and pain, and on all his progeny, misfortunes reigned.
actually burying the body. Caught him in the act, as they say, red-handed. Only it's not a him, it's a her. Where's the king?
He's just returning now, when he's most needed.
What's all the noise? By the look of things, I'm here a moment too soon. What has happened?
My Lord Creon, I reckon it's always unwise to swear oaths and make promises, even to yourself. 9 times out of 10, second thoughts will have their say, and end up by calling you a lie. It's no time at all since I promised myself I'd never be seen dead here again. You were that angry with me last time. Right mouthful you gave me. More than enough. Thanks very much. But you can't beat a real turn-up for the books, can you? There's nothing better than a good win when you're expecting a tousing. So here I am, as the comic said, with my promises not worth the air they were spoken with. This girl's your criminal? We saw her doing it, actually setting the grave to rights. I brought her here, and there was no panic this time. I can tell you, no recriminations or drawing of lots. This job was all mine, and I claim the credit for it. And now she's all yours. Take her, accuse her, and stone her to death if you like, but by rights, I'm free to go. I'm well shot of all of it.
Where did you arrest her? Tell me the details.
She was burying him. What more is there to say?
Are you out of your mind? Do you realize the implications of what you are saying?
Sir, she was burying the body that you ordered not to be buried. I cannot speak plainer than that.
Did you catch her in the act? Did you see her doing it?
Well, it was like this. As soon as I got back, remembering all those threats or promises you made me, we brushed all the earth off the naked body, which was all wet and starting to decay. Then we sat up on the ridge, well to the windward of the stink. We kept a sharp eye on each other, ready to nudge anyone who dropped off, and tear him off a strip too. For hours we sat there, till about midday. The sun was smack overhead, blazing down, and the heat was something terrible, I can tell you. Then, suddenly, a whirlwind blew up. Definitely a twister it was, but localized. And it blew up a dust storm, which swept across the whole plain, tore all the leaves off the trees, blotted out the whole sky, and completely blinded us. It was like some terrible manifestation of the gods. You had to shut your eyes just to bear it. Then, suddenly, it stopped. And when the air cleared, we saw this girl standing there, sort of wailing, like a bird who comes back to the nest to find the eggs smashed or the fledglings gone. Anyway, she was just stood there, screaming and cursing the monsters who had done such a thing. Us, of course. Then she picked up a few handfuls of the dry dust and sprinkled it on him. She carried an urn, a small ceremonial bronze thing, and poured from it 3 times onto the dead body. Honey and wine and stuff in it, I suppose. All the proper ritual for a funeral anyway. Anyway, as soon as we saw that, we came charging down and arrested her on the spot. She stood her ground, there was no struggle, so we formally charged her with this crime and the last one, and she admitted she'd done them both. And we were relieved to hear that, I can tell you. But sorry too. It's nice to get out of trouble yourself. Not so nice when you drop someone else up to the neck in it. Someone you've got no quarrel with. But your own life comes first, I reckon. You got to look out for number 1.
And you, with your head down, what do you say to this accusation? Is it true? Are you guilty or not?
Yes, I'm guilty. I don't pretend otherwise.
You, soldier, get out. You're cleared of all charges against you and free to go back to your unit. Now you, tell me, a simple yes or no. Did you hear of the order forbidding the burial?
Of course I heard it. How could I not?
And yet you dare to disobey the law?
Yes, because it's your law, not the law of God. I shall die, of course, sometime, whether if you make laws or not. And if my death comes sooner rather than later, I shall welcome it. My life has been a misery, is misery now. I shall be more than happy to leave it. There will be no pain and no despair in that. But to leave my mother's son out there in the open, unburied, that would have been unendurable. I could not have borne it, whereas this I shall endure. By your judgment, of course, I'm a fool, but by mine, it's the judge, not the accused who's behaving foolishly.
This is her father speaking. Stubborn like him, she won't give away, not even with the whole power of the state against her.
Well, we shall see. Any man can be broken, and often the most committed and determined breaks soonest. Even iron, left laying in the fire for too long, becomes over-tempered and snaps as soon as a little pressure is applied. You could break it to pieces. And in the end, even the wildest horse submits to the bit and halter just like the rest. Ordinary citizens must necessarily learn to obey those in authority above them. This woman is proud. That was obvious in the first place when she broke the law, and it's even clearer now. She glories in the crime she has committed and insults me to my face, as well as ignoring my decree. If she's allowed to flaunt the law in this way, all authority in the state will collapse. I will not have that. There will be no exchanging of roles here, me playing the woman while she plays the king. This woman is my niece, my sister's child, but I am the law, and that responsibility is above kinship.
What are you waiting for? Kill me and have done with it.
Nothing more than your death. That'll be enough.
Then what are you waiting for? Nothing you say will be of the slightest of interest to me, and my arguments you will not listen to. I've done what I've said I do. I've buried my brother, and I aspire to no greater honor. And if I am to be famous, let it be for that. All these senators of yours, they all agree with me in their hearts. But there is no gag like terror, is there, gentlemen? And tyrants must have their way, both in words and in action. That's their privilege.
You are quite mistaken. None of the Thebans anywhere in the city are of your opinion.
They all are, but they keep their mouths shut when you're here.
No, not at all. And you should be ashamed of yourself, setting yourself up against the majority, disregarding the will of the people.
I loved my brother. I honor him dead as I loved him living. There's no shame in that.
And the one he murdered, wasn't he your brother?
My mother bore them both, and I loved them both.
When you honor one, you insult the other.
Neither of those dead men would say that.
Eticulus would. His brother was a traitor. Does he not merit any greater honor than that?
But he was not an animal. They were both men, and they both died together.
Yes. One died defending his country, while the other one traitorously attacked it.
The dead have their rights, and we have our duties towards them, dictated by common decency.
And if good and bad are to be valued equally, where are values? Patriotism, civic duty.
Death is another country. Such things may not be valued there, may even be crimes.
An enemy is still an enemy, dead or alive.
No, I was born with enough love to share, no hate for anyone.
Very well. Share your love. By all means, share it with the dead. I wish them well of it. Women must learn to obey as well as men. They can have no special treatment. Law is law, and will remain so while I am alive, and no woman will ever get the better of me. And you, snake, slithering silently around my house, drinking my blood in secret, both of you the same. I looked the other way, and like terrorists, you laid undercover plans to destroy me. Well, what do you say? Do you confess you're part of the crime?
Yes, I confess. If she will allow me to say so, I was fully involved. And if she is guilty, then so am I.
No, that isn't justice. When I asked you for help, you refused me. And so I told you I didn't want you. I'd do it alone.
But now that you're in danger, Antigone, I'm proud to stand beside you in the dawn.
The dead man knows who buried him. What use are people who are all words and no action?
Please, my sister, don't despise me. Let me share in the honor and die with you.
You've no right to claim the honor for doing something you were afraid to do. One death will be enough. Why should you die?
Because life without you won't be worth living.
Ask Grant to protect you. He is your uncle.
Do I deserve such contempt? Do you enjoy making fun of me, sneering at my misery?
You're right. It's a reflection of my own pain. If such bitter pleasures are all I have left.
Let me help you then. It's not too late.
Save your own life. Do that for yourself, without any criticism from me, or envy.
I warned you this would happen. I knew how it would be.
And the majority would agree with you, but some would be of my opinion.
We're both in the wrong and both condemned.
No! You must live. I've been dead for a long time, inwardly. I'm well suited to pay honor to the dead in that way.
These women are neurotic, lunatics, both of them. One of them going off dead before the other one born unbalanced.
Well, are you surprised? Anyone would crack, the most tough-minded person, under such treatment.
You lost your senses when you allowed yourself to be influenced by her lunacy.
There's no life for me here, not without my sister.
Don't speak of her. She's as good as dead.
Will you condemn the woman your son plans to marry?
He's a young man, plenty of women, enough fields to plow.
They're devoted to each other. You can't change love as you change your clothes.
No son of mine may marry a criminal.
Oh, Haman, when you hear how your father insults you.
Let him hear. What does his mistress matter to me? I've had enough of this shilly-shally. Take them away, lock them up and keep them under close guard. It's time they learn their woman and their proper place in society.
They who call themselves lucky, the fortunate few, who live their lives through never drinking from the bitter cup of pain. But when one unlucky family incurs the god's malignity, they must swallow the bitter potion again and then again.
Just as rollers crash and sea spray whips on an exposed beach, and black sands from the chasms of ocean darken the strand.
On every descendant of the ancient line of Lapithus, divine and merciless retributions falls. In the unremembered past of some unforgiving Olympian cast the weight of his vengeance on the whole race, so that agony, destruction, disgrace, destroys son and daughter, and darkens their halls with tragedy.
The cold hands of the dead reach out for the living, and no one is spared. Another generation sheds its blood. New light is snuffed out. The young root barred for the same bloody axe. The characteristic sin of Oedipus, arrogance, brings its bleak harvest in.
For Zeus is all-powerful. No man can match him. He never sleeps as man must sleep, and time, which leaves its mark on fair complexions and dark, may never engrave upon his face, or dim the brightness of his palace, where the gods keep their ageless court, at the utmost peak of sublime Olympus.
Choice is Macedon, and well did that wise man speak. He held his hand up by right, and for those who climb in their greatness or wickedness upon their committed height, in destruction and despair.
But all men hope, and some have ambition, far-ranging birds that never tire. Those wings bears the men steadily onward.
But some others aimlessly swoop and glide down to frivolous pastures, landscapes of obsession and the merciless fire, and no man can claim to have understood hope or ambition until the once solid wood of his life burns beneath his feet and is reduced to its last condition, ashes and dust.
A wise man said, from out of the depth of his inspiration, when a man commits crimes and is proud of his action, a flaming sword hangs over his head. No future but the grave and a funeral urn.
Creon, here comes your youngest son. Is he so desperate with grief that his future bride should be so brutally denied, and all his hopes of happiness gone?
For the last of your sons, what relief from his consuming fears and the bitter penance of tears?
Does he come to beg for mercy for his beloved Antigone?
We shall know that from his own lips, without any need of fortune tellers. My dear son, I don't doubt that you have heard about the news of our final decision, the condemnation of the woman you intend to marry. You come here, I hope, not with any spirit of anger against your father, but understanding that we're always comrades, that my love for you is unshaken.
I know I'm your son, Father. I understand the depth of your experience, man of the state, and I try to follow and benefit from it whenever I can. Any marriage would be worthless to me, and not your approval and love.
Good fellow, hang on to that. A father's opinion should always be influential with his son. And fathers with young sons, when they pray for them, ask especially that they grow up to be loyal, obedient, under pressure the first to strike at their father's enemies, just as they are the first to support his friends. A father whose son yields no such profit from the investment of his parenthood, breeds grief and sorrow to his offspring, and becomes himself a figure of fun, especially to his enemies. Authority is essential in any state, and will be upheld in this one by me. There will be no yielding to female fantasies, not even as so much as by an inch. If we must be deposed of, let it be in a man's hand, Asa, and not a conspiracy of a woman.
If an old man is fit to judge, Lord Creon, you have spoken reasonably, sensibly, and with the wisdom gathered from long experience.
Father, the most enviable of a man's gifts is the ability to reason clearly. And it's not for me to say you are wrong, even if I were clever enough or experienced enough, which I'm not. But it's also true to say that some men think differently about these things. And as your son, my most useful function, seems to me, is to keep you in touch with what other people are thinking, what they say and do, and approve or disapprove of, and sometimes what they leave unsaid. The prospect of your disapproval is a great silencer of most men's tongues, and some things are never said for fear of the consequences. But sometimes I hear what people whisper behind their hands, and everywhere I hear sympathy expressed for this unfortunate girl, condemned as she is to a horrifying death that no woman has ever suffered before, and unjustly in most people's eyes. In burying her brother, who was killed in action, she, something most people consider decent and honorable, rather than leaving him naked on the battlefield for the dogs to tear at and kites and scavengers to pick to the bone. She should be given a medal for it, those same people say, and her name inscribed on the roll of honor. Such things are whispered in secret, Father, and they have reached my ears. Sir, your reputation matters to me as much as your good health and happiness do. Indeed, your good name matters more. What can a loving son be more jealous of than his father's reputation? And what could please a father more than to see his son's concern that people think well of him? Then let me beg you, Father, not to be certain that your own opinion is the only right one, and that all men share it. The man who thinks he has the monopoly of wisdom, that only what he says and what he thinks is of any relevance, reveals his own shallowness of mind with every word he says. The man of judgment, on the other hand, knows it's a sign of strength, not weakness, to value other opinions, and to learn from them. And when he is wrong, to admit it openly and change his mind. You see it when the river floods. The trees that bend survive. Those whose trunks are inflexible are snapped off short by the weight of the water. And a sailor in a storm who refuses to reef his sail and run with the wind is likely to end up capsized. I beg you, Father, think twice about this. Don't let your anger influence you. A man of my age may lay some small claim to common sense. Let me say this. Absolute certainty is fine. A man can be certain that his wisdom is absolute. But such certainty and such wisdom is rare among men. And that being so, the next best is to learn to listen and to take good advice when it's offered.
My Lord Creon,
There's a lot of sense in what this young man has said, as indeed there was in everything you said too. The fact is, you are both in the right, and there's a good deal to be said for either.
Is there indeed? Am I expected to listen to political tactics at my age from a mere boy?
I'm a man, father, and my arguments are just. They stand upon the merits, not my age.
They stand upon their merits, do they? What merit is there, please tell me, in breaking the law?
If she'd done something shameful, I wouldn't defend her.
She has brought the law to contempt. That's shameful.
Listen to the people in the street, father. The ordinary Thebans. They say she hasn't.
I've never based my political principles off the opinions and the people of the street.
Now you're the one who's speaking like a boy.
Speaking like a boy? I'm speaking like a king, and it is my responsibility. I will act according to my own convictions.
When the state becomes one man, it ceases to be a state.
The state is the statesman who rules it. It reflects his judgment. It belongs to him.
Go rule in the desert then! There's no one to argue with you. What a great king you'll be there.
This boy of mine is on a woman's side.
Yes, if you're a woman, I am. I'm on your side, father. I'm fighting for you.
You damn unfortunate devil! Every word you say is against me, your own father!
When I know you're wrong, I have to speak.
How am I wrong? By maintaining the position and authority in the state. Is that wrong?
With position and authority, by roughshod.
You're weak and luxurious and contemptible with no will of your own. You're a woman's mouthpiece, a tame lapdog.
I'm not ashamed of what I'm saying.
Every word you say pleads for her cause.
I plead for you and for myself, for common humanity, respect for the dead.
You won't marry that woman. She won't live long enough to see that day.
If she dies, she won't die alone. There will be 2 deaths, not 1.
Are you threatening me? How dare you?
No, it's not a threat. I'm telling you, your policy was misbegotten from the beginning.
Misbegotten? Dear God, if anything's misbegotten here, it's my own son.
If you weren't my father, I'd say you were demented.
Don't father me. You're a woman's plaything, a tame lapdog.
Is anyone else allowed to speak? Must you have the last word in everything? Must all the rest of us be gagged?
I must, and I will. And you, I promise you, will regret what you have spoken here today. I will not be sneered at or contradicted by anyone. Sons can be punished too. Bring her out, the bitch. Let her die here and now in the open, with her bridegroom beside her as a witness. You can watch the execution.
That's one sight I shall never see. Nor from this moment, father, will you ever see me again. Those that wish to stay and watch this disgusting spectacle in company with a madman are welcome to it.
Lord Creon, an uncontrollable fury has possessed your son and swept him off like a whirlwind. A young man's anger is a terrifying thing.
Let him go and shout his head off about moral this, indecent that, till he raves himself senseless. The 2 women are sentenced, and it will take more than pluster to revive them, I promise you.
Both of them, sir. You think about both of the sisters. To death?
No, you are right. I can take your advice. The one who covered the body, not the other.
And for the condemned one, what manner of death?
Take her some rocky place, lonely, unfrequented by anyone. Find a cave and wall up in it, both just enough food so that no guilt falls either upon us or the state. She'll have plenty of time to honor the gods there, and since they hear so many of her prayers, they will release her, and she will learn that worshipping the dead is not the business of the living.
When the god of unbridled passion makes war, he always wins. No force on earth can withstand his powerful, merciless hand.
When the first flowers appear in a young girl's cheek, the remorseless magic begins.
And then, from the deepest valley to the ISD. His chapters, and no man sins or virtues can keep from the net.
The mania is universal. The gods themselves run mad. Men lose their wits and no one is spared.
When the madness strikes, no one is safe. The maturest of men will commit follies and crimes undreamed of in saner times.
What else could provoke this strife? Between father and son, this family divided, and murderous anger between kin.
There's fire in the human side. Inside it may such consuming heat. Man's mind can live.
Aphrodite shares power with Zeus. Her seat is at his right hand. Her lightning strikes to the heart, and its power is frightening.
Yet how can we talk of justice and the needs of the state when we stand and watch this unendurable sight? I often hunger, pray, and weep, sing Antigone, that the young bride, will fetch him to marry the dead and share their everlasting sleep.
In all my wanderings, gentlemen, this place has been my home. I was born in this city, and now I begin my last journey. I look up at the sun and its familiar sky and feel its warmth on my face, only to say goodbye. In the daytime of my life, in mid-breath, the security policeman, Death, arrests me as he arrests everyone, young and old, at home or in the street. To the cold waters of darkness we come, never to return across that silent river. No wedding for me, no music, no guests in the room. My wedding gift is eternity in a stone tomb. My dowry, forever not to be. Death, my bridegroom.
But your action is famous. In every street, mouths whisper, Antigone.
You go down to the dead, with the promise of glory ringing in your head, and nothing to devalue your beauty.
No sword scarred you, plague visited, unmarked, untouched. You pass through the danger of flight into the safety of eternal night, alive, alone, and free.
Do you remember the sad story of Tantalus's daughter? Today her story is mine, and I shall share her rocky bed.
But she was a goddess, not born for death like the children of men whose desperate morality is their only certainty. Will it soothe your pain to share her destiny, or soften your distress, as alive in the earth you draw your last breath to live on in legend and stone?
This is a mockery, but everything the city of our fathers has ever held sacred. You landowners, you elder statesmen, you rulers of Thebes, my dying is no joke. Am I a figure of fun to be treated like a child, insulted and humiliated as I leave you forever? Then our Theban river, glittering pathway, ceaselessly flowing from Dirce's death till now, flat lands thundering beneath our chariots. You must be my witnesses, my only friends and mourners. As victimized by an unjust law, I go forever to my last home, in the living tomb.
No one has ever dared to go so far before as you have dared to go. And now you have stumbled and stubbed your toe, and will shortly shed your blood on the marble staircase of the law. You carry your father's crimes like a millstone on your back. Small wonder in such times the bones bend or break.
Nothing more painful than that, the remembrance of my father's long agony and the curse on my suffering family from the beginning. So much grief from the unlucky chance of the son finding the mother's bed, and worse than anything, the benighted offspring of that unspeakable marriage. And I, with the others, share that terrible destiny, conceived in incest. No repentance can soften the punishment. One death breeds another.
To pay respect to the dead is praiseworthy, an act of love, and religion must have its due. But no civilized state can eschew authority. Laws must be obeyed, whether we approve or disapprove. If you refuse to sanction the power of the state by indulging your obsession, you connive at your own fate.
Spare me your sympathy. Weep no false tears. I know the path that I must follow, to the sunless country of eternal sorrow, the bleak waters of eternity, the unimaginable years. So much grief grief where none is felt. Today, I shall go to my house of stone.
If death can be prevented by singing airs about it, or self-indulgent displays of grief, this performance would go on forever. I've no doubt. But I've had enough. Take her away, lock her up in her stone vault with half a mountain as a roof, and brick up the wall. Let her die there if she chooses. Or let her live. What does it matter? Because the grave's the only fit place for her. Solitary confinement among the dead. Whatever she chooses, no guilt will fall either upon us or the state. Her death's her own, but there's no place for her among the living.
To my grave then, my honeymoon bed, my prison, my crypt under the mountain, my home for the rest of time. I shall meet so many of my relations there. Creon sentences me to death, drags me here, and will shut me away in a cavern under the mountain. A living death, in silence and darkness and solitude. I shall die unmarried. All those pleasures denied me, and motherhood denied me too. No children to love me, to love. And now, no friends. What moral law have I broken? What eternal truths have I denied? Yet now not even a God can help me, and there's no man who will. I'm sure of that. No help and no hope. How can there be when common decency has become a crime? And if the gods in heaven have changed their minds, and this is the way they order things now, I shall soon know it. I shall have learnt my lesson the hard way. But if any others are mistaken, let them be punished the way I've been punished, and suffer the injustice that I suffer.
She hasn't changed even now. The anger excited to blows like a hurricane.
Sooner she's got rid of, shut up, out of harm's way, the better. Tell those guards to get a move on, or they regret it.
That word is my death.
And now it is spoken. Don't comfort yourself with hope. There is none.
This is the land of my fathers, Thebes, built by a god. You see, senators, I have no more time. I am the last of the royal blood, a daughter of kings, and I die his victim, unjustly for upholding justice and the humanity of humankind.
Guards, take me away.
Others have suffered, like child, like you. Upon the age same dreadful sacrifice, far from the light of day, which how passion is away. And that one single room, all prison trees, became a wedding chamber last.
An inner room, the season of Zeus, descending the golden shower, made a mockery of the brazen tower.
Fate has its own momentum. When things must be, they will be. What use is power in their state or wealth, massive armies and a single fleet? Gods make their entrances by strength or style, and no tools or towers can be allowed.
The arrogant king Kirk discovered wisdom when he acted the god Dionysus to his will. That proud Antigone king was punished with madness, and long imprisoned in rocky cells, to be reflected in particular hell of lunacy, so the healing silence soothed and reordered his brain.
He learned there the terrible power of God that we challenge. Ecstasy is beyond my understanding, a mystery deeper than reason, which overcomes pain and sees truth in intoxication of terror. Only a fool who pretends to stop the chaos and flow of life, or to silence their ecstatic singing. The sleep of reason is not darkness, but another kind of light.
And where the gloomy rocks lie in seas, in Thrace, by the Bosphorus, the savage blood areas laugh, and the sons of Phineas, blinded with sin. Nothing can placate their vengeful stepmother's fate, but bloody evil darkened their eyes forever, blinding the children, as the gods have blinded the father,
she was descended from the gods, in the echoing caves of the north wind she lived as a child, and on the open mountainside ran wild from her corpses. Man's fate is determined, will not be denied. The child Antigone pays for the parent's pride.
Senators of Thebes and your new king Creon, we have traveled together, my boy and I, sharing one pair of eyes between the two of us, which is the way the blind must make their journeys.
Tiresias, what news brings you so far?
Important news that can't wait, and advice which, if you're wise, you'll listen to.
I've always listened, and acted upon it more than once.
And like a sensible captain who values his pilot, you've avoided the rocks.
I admit it. We all do. We are in your debt.
Then for God's sake, listen to me now. You're like a man balanced on a razor, likely to fall or to cut himself to pieces.
Are you serious? Any man would shudder hearing those words from your lips, which were told so many horrors. Tell me what you mean.
Oh yes, I intend to. Everything my experience of forecasting the future and understanding symbols has revealed to me, I will make plain to you. I was sitting in my usual seat, place where I can hear the singing and the secret language of the birds and understand their meaning, when I heard, quite unexpectedly, a terrible new sound, like shrieking or cries of anguish, hysterical twittering, and whistling like the babbles of a barbaric language, only capable of expressing hatred or pain. By that and the wild beatings of wings, I knew the birds were at war. Such sounds could mean nothing else. I could well imagine their blood-stained beaks and dripping claws, and that thought disturbed me deeply. At once I went to my altar to see what I could learn by the sacrifice by fire, but nothing would burn. A filthy liquid ran from the flesh and dropped on the embers and sizzled and bubbled among the ashes. Then, the gallbladder burst, spurting stinking acid all across the meat. And all the fat was melted and rendered down till the bone was left bare. I saw all of this. Well, my boy did. He sees for me what I cannot, just as I see things to which other people are blind. But in that filth, I read nothing. The oracle was clogged with fat and decay. And then it was revealed. I understood that you, Lord Creon, have decreed this filth that chokes our altars. The blood and flesh that stinks and decays there is the blood and flesh vomited from the gullets of dogs and carrion crows. The blood of Polynices, that unluckiest of the sons of Oedipus, still unburied and affronting more than our usual sense of smell. The gods themselves are disgusted. How can they be otherwise? How can the birds sing of anything but horrors, blown out with this banquet of human blood, clogged and stinking till their very beaks drip with it? My son, listen to me. Any man can make a mistake or commit a crime. The man who can recognize what he has done, see that he was mistaken or morally wrong, admit it, and put it right, proves that it is never too late for a man to become wise, and no one will condemn him. But if he compounds his stupidity with an obstinate refusal to face the facts, he is nothing but a fool. Is there anyone more stupid than the stupid man who cannot see his own stupidity? This is good advice, sincerely offered by someone who wishes you well. Take it
So that's your news, is it, Tiresias? I'm to be the target for everyone to shoot at. Well, I am wise too. Wise by the way of fortune tellers and all the buying and selling you all go in for. I'm to be the latest bargain. I'm to be bought and sold like silver and gold from India. Well, let me tell you this, Tiresias. Anyone can fall like a stone, especially if they pretend to give good advice, but wrap it in a profound cloak of religiosity, when all the while naked self-interest and the greed for profit are the only motives that matter to them.
Are there any wise men left? Anywhere?
Goodness, how profound. Do you have any more thundering platitudes to follow that one?
Mature judgment cannot be bought. No treasure is as valuable. And good advice is worth more than a fortune to any man.
Bad advice is worse than worthless. A disease which infects even the wisest of men.
You describe your own symptoms exactly.
I refuse to become involved in a slangy match or quarrel with a recognized prophet of Thebes.
And yet, you insult me to my face. You say my predictions are both false and dishonest.
That is because all fortune tellers are money grubbers and charlatans.
Kings, too, have been known to be quite acquisitive.
Do you realize who you're speaking to? I am the king!
You are the king, yes, and my good advice helped to make you one.
You're right. You've had your successes. You've been proven right on more than one occasion. But honesty is another matter. I've never trusted you.
Oh, Creon. Don't provoke me to tell you everything. The dark waters of prophecy are better left undisturbed.
Disturb them. What do I care? But at least when you speak honestly and not for cash.
Are you really foolish enough to believe that money has ever been my motive?
Because my integrity is not for sale.
Listen, Creon! This is the truth! Before many more days, before the sun has risen, or shall we say a few more times, you will have made your payment, corpse for corpse with a child of your own blood. The woman you have left buried, the one who moves and breathes, you have given to the grave. Yet the dead man you have left unwashed, unwept, and without the common courtesy of a decent covering of earth, so that both have been wronged, and the gods of the underworld to whom the body justly belongs are denied it and are insulted. Such matters are not for you to judge. You usurp ancient rights to which even the gods themselves don't dare to question. Such powers are not in the prerogative of kings. Even now, implacable avengers are on their way. The furies who rise up from hell and swoop down from heaven fix their hooks into those who commit crimes and will never let go. Am I speaking for money now? Have I been bribed, do you think? Before very long, yes, it will be soon, there will be screaming, bitter tears, hysterical crying in this house. Men, as well as women, other cities, other countries too, will turn upon you for the crimes you have committed. Dogs and vultures will swarm in the streets, dropping fragments of that unburied man at corners, on doorsteps, in the public squares. They will smell the pollution and turn to you, its author. That's all I have to say. You've angered me, Lord Creon, with your crude accusations. So I made you my target. And like a good marksman, all my shots have hit the bull. You can feel them, can't you? The pain, right here. Take me away now, boy. Let him entertain some younger ears than mine with his ridiculous outbursts. Either that, or let him learn mature judgment and how the wise hold their tongues.
My lord, she's gone, promising nothing but disasters to come. I grew old in this city, and in all that time I've never known any of her prophecies to be proven wrong.
Neither have I. I know that much as well as you. My hands are like a tug of war, one way, then the other. How can I give way now? But how can I stand here like a fool and wait stubbornly for whatever disaster may be coming?
Lord Creon, it's time to take good advice.
Don't be afraid. Give it. I'll listen.
Release the woman from her underground prison and give an honorable burial to the dead man.
Oh, so that's your advice. Total collapse, complete withdrawal. Do you all think that?
We do, sir. And do it quickly, for heaven's sake. The gods never move faster than when punishing men for their actions.
How can I do it? It's unendurable to go against every action, every principle I've stood fast by. But I dare not stand against the iron laws of necessity.
Go on, sir. Do it. And do it personally, not by proxy, but with your own hands.
Yes, you are right. I shall go myself at once. Somebody, anybody, bring spades and sledgehammers out onto the mountain. I'm coming with you. If I've changed my mind, I shall act upon it with exactly the same determination. I sentenced her, and I will set her free. Tear down the bricks with my own hands if necessary. Perhaps it is wiser to let the old law stand. My fear tells me it is. And that's a voice every prudent man should listen to.
Senators, listen! Descendants of Cadmus, who founded our city, and Amphion, who built it, good people of Thebes. No man's life ever moves smoothly according to plan. Who can make judgments, say this is praiseworthy in human existence, and this is to be condemned, when chance rules everything? One moment a man rides high on his fortune, the next he crashes to the depths. Luck, like the tide, is certain to ebb after the flow, and no man can tell what will happen tomorrow. Everyone surely envied Creon. He had saved his country from its enemies, taken power as king, and his position in the state was unchallenged. What's more, he ruled well, with a firm hand, and his son was at his side to help and succeed him. All that is gone now. Tell me, what life can there be when the things that make life pleasant are all destroyed? A kind of death, moving and breathing but not living. That's how it is for him. Of course, he's rich beyond all accounting. He's a king still, with all the pomp and circumstance that rank implies. But what's it worth when all the joy in life is gone? A shadow, a mockery, a vulgar pageant. Who can take pleasure in wealth or power when all happiness is dead in his heart?
more tragedy for this family? Tell us your news.
They're both dead, and the living must take the blame.
Who's that?
The king's son, Haman. The royal blood shed by a royal hand.
His father, you mean? Or his own?
His own held the sword, but his father's actions drove it home.
The prophet warned us. Everything came true.
That's how things are. It's in your hands now.
Look, the doors are opening. Eurydice, poor woman, Creon's wife. Does she know, do you think? Does she come here by chance? Or because she heard the rumors about her son?
Good friends, my ears caught something of what you're saying. A few words as I opened the door. I was on my way to offer prayers to Pallas Athene, who had just drawn back the bolt, as I heard a few scraps of your conversation. Enough to make me fear what all mothers fear. A disaster, or some kind of accident to those we love. Please speak it out plainly, whatever it is, I can bear it. Or a bred to stoicism in this family.
Dear Queen, whom we all respect, I was there. I saw it all, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. There's no point in trying to soften the blow now, only to be proven a liar later. It's best to tell the truth. I went with the king, your husband, to the edge of the battlefield, where we saw the body of Polynices still lying where he fell, and in a terrible state. The dogs had been at him. So we prayed, first to Hecate, who haunts crossroads and tombs, and scenes of crimes committed but not atoned for, and then to Pluto, king of the dead. We begged them to have pity on him and on us, and not to be angry. Then we washed him, or what was left of him, with holy water, cut fresh branches to make a pyre, and burned the remains. We shoveled a mound of his own Theban earth over the ashes, and when we had finished, we hurried off to the prison cell furnished with stone that served as a bridal suite for the girl married to death. But before we arrived, one of the soldiers with the unenviable job of guarding that god-forsaken place came running back to tell the king that he'd heard a terrible noise, like screaming, coming from inside the mountain. And as Creon got nearer, he heard it too, faint but audible, low and unearthly, as though grief were speaking its own naked language. We heard the king groan aloud and heard him say, "Oh God, this is what I was afraid of. Am I a prophet too? This path up to the tomb, these last few steps, are the most agonizing journey I shall ever make. I can hear my son's voice in there. You, guards, anybody, quickly, get inside, squeeze between the rocks, where somebody has already forced an entrance. Get inside the cave and tell me if that is my son's voice that I recognize, or if the gods are playing some brutal game with me." So we went in as the half-crazed king had told us to. And there, in the darkest corner of the room, we saw her, strung up by the neck, hanging from an improvised rope of twisted linen strips, torn from her own dress. Haman was right beside her, cuddling her body as it lay there, sobbing broken-heartedly at the loss of his lover, and the marriage bad luck and his father's cruelty had made certain would never happen. When Creon saw them, he staggered into the cave, groaning like an animal, and sobbed aloud, "My boy, my poor boy, what have you done?" And then, "Have you gone mad coming here? There's nothing here for you but grief and annihilation and despair. Come out from there, my boy. Come out, for God's sakes, I'm begging you, come away." But the boy just looked at him, and his eyes were terrified, with an anger like I've never seen before. Without a word, he spat in his father's face, drew his sword, and lunged straight for the old man. But Creon was quick and skipped out of distance. And then, the poor lad, hysterical with grief and self-disgust, held out his sword at arm's length and plunged it between his own ribs. Then, still conscious, he lifted the girl down to the crook of his arm and cradled her body as it lay there. His breathing got harder and shorter, and we watched as his life flooded away before our eyes like a fountain, soaking her body so that it might flush red again with the blood stains. So now, they're together, two corpses joined in death. He got his marriage, poor lad, but it was solemnized in the grave where there are no celebrations. They look like honeymooners, peacefully sleeping side by side in one bed, evidence of the havoc man can wreak upon man by his own pig-headedness and arrogance.
That's strange. What do you make of it? His wife is gone, without a word, giving no indication of her own feelings, one way or another.
It scares me a bit, but I'm sure she has good reason. A public demonstration of grief would be unlike her. She'll suffer like any mother would for her son's death, but in private, with her women. She'd never do anything foolish or indiscreet, I'm sure of that. She's far too sensible.
I don't know. Her silence was unnerving and dangerously unlike what we would expect. I mean, that kind of silence is sometimes more dangerous than screaming or tears.
I'll go in after her, just to make sure grief doesn't tempt her to anything silly or excessive. You're right. Her silence was unnerving. She seemed to feel nothing, and in my experience, that can be dangerous.
So, there, the king is coming.
Not the silent witness comes before him, dead as stone, and speaking evidence that the crime, like the grief, is all his own. He suffers now from his wrongdoing.
Hey, there was hatred inside me. The urge to destroy drove me like a maniac. An insane plunge towards death. Your death, my boy. See here, the killer and his victim. See here, the father and his son. I was responsible. My actions killed him. There's no blame for him. None at all. It lasted. The morning of your life, my hope, my joy, my hand powered the knife, my arrogance determined your fate.
You see the truth now, but you see it too late.
Suffering is the only school teacher. The gods have broken my back and whipped me like a beast up this stony track, and taken all my self-respect, all pleasure, all rejoicing. They've turned to anguish and weeping.
My lord, you have suffered enough, but more suffering is marked to your name. One agony lies here in the open, the other behind the door. The same anguish redoubled.
There can be nothing worse. My heart is broken.
Your wife is dead, the mother of the slaughtered son. Her wound is fresh, but the breath of life is gone.
Will you kill me too? Or bring me to my knees to suffer longer, beating my head insensible with pain? What can you say, messenger of death, with a sad face, more than you've already said? My way is towards darkness. My case can be no worse than it is. Will you kill me again? I'm already dead. First the son, then the mother. No end to this grief.
There's no hiding it now. See for yourself.
Unending, unendurable pain. For the second time now, I'm forced to see what no man's eyes should ever see, even once. Is this how it ends? Or is there more torture, more suffering? A few moments ago, my trembling arms embraced the dead son. Now, death has snatched the mother right from my hands.
It was there by the household shrine she collapsed, still holding the razor-sharp knife. And as darkness drew down its slow blinds, She spoke of Megarius, who died in the fullness of his youth, her elder boy. By his empty bed she wept, and for the son whose life ended today, and with her last dying breath, cursed you as his murderer who drove him to this death.
I'm shaking. I shall go mad with this terror. There must be a sword somewhere. Sharp two-edged knife to cut away my life. Living is a misery now. Forever. Everywhere I look, there's blood.
It's no more than the truth I've told. Her last word was to blame you for both deaths, mother and son.
Or did she die? Did she die alone?
She heard them weeping for Haman, cried aloud, and skewered herself under the heart with a sword.
She spoke nothing but the truth. All guilt is mine. I am the murderer. Make that plain. Somebody, anybody, take me away. I disgrace the decent light of day. I am nothing. Where are you, my friend? Come, you shouting messenger, who runs faster than the wind, and wrap me in a cloak of darkness, like a friend should. Why waste another day? What good is daylight to me? Why should my misery work in the face of another dawn?
Tomorrow is a mystery. No man can say what time make plain. We live day by day. The future is in greater hands than ours.
I am nothing. I want nothing. My last simplest prayers.
No time for prayers now. It's too late to pray. What must come will come, tomorrow or today.
Take me then, the man who killed his son and wife without knowing. Where shall I go? Left or right? All wrong turnings now. Darkness, hide me in the night. There's blood on my hands. My head is broken. My back is split. I should be dead.
The key to human happiness is to nurture wisdom in your heart.
Have man to attend to man's business, and let the gods play their part.
In the end, the gods will bring us good.
Today, it has happened here. With our own eyes, we have seen an old man, through suffering, become wise.
Thank you so much for being here to share this experience. Because of you, it gave us the energy and the excitement that we needed to share this show. Additionally, thank you to everybody who's live streaming this at home. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for witnessing the story that's been told on stage today. I wanted to thank the sound and lights up there. We've got 4 students who are back there running
the smoke machine, the lights, the sound, and they've worked really, really hard in their free time on weekends. They've dealt with me, you know, yelling at them to get cues, like true professionals. So thank you so much to the sound and lights. I wanted to thank my friend Zabina Drosta, who helped to make these amazing costumes. She hand-stitched all of the costumes. We started with meters and meters of canvas fabric that we rolled out over the stage, and then we started cutting them and came up with the idea for the costumes. I wanted to thank my friend and my colleague Chris Sabuco, because he jumped in at the last minute to help also to organize some of the sound and lights. Thank you to Adrian, who is running the live stream for us. And the last people that I want to thank is this amazing cast of students. There are 13 students who have experienced what none of the rest of us experienced in grade 9, in grade 10. And at the beginning of the year, when we were looking at plays to choose, and this is what I wrote in the director's notes, I knew when I got to know them, I knew that they were ready to do a play like this. And that's a really special thing, because you don't always, as a teacher, have the opportunity to work with such a strong group of students. Because in this piece, you see that the chorus is on stage almost the whole show. And you can't do a show like this if every single person isn't as strong as the next. So I'm so, so proud of all of you and the work that you put into it. You've overcome some incredible obstacles that none of us experienced when we were in grade 9 and grade 10. And you also did an amazing play. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for making it so fun for me. And thank you all for being here to witness it. Thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful weekend.